It was just very unusual, atypical, and I think we're all awaiting, the readout, because the way that it felt in the room was not good. It did not seem like things went well, and it seemed like Putin came in and steamrolled, got right into what he wanted to say, and got his photo next to the president and then left. Of course, that is only the piece of the picture that we have right now, and certainly President Trump, who is the host and who is the president, would not want to, I think, enable something that would make him look weak. But we are eagerly awaiting to hear the background on that. And I will also note that we didn't see any sort of scowls on the faces of the likes of Steve Witkoff or Secretary Rubio or any of the other members of the U.S. delegation. And I think had it been concerning, we might have seen something there. But just to paint a picture for you of in the room, how it felt, what we're wondering about, what we need to know to put the pieces together and fully understand what we all just witnessed.
They're trying to figure out what the hell they just witnessed. But the one thing that Jackie Heinrich, who I've seen some of her reporting on Fox News, I think she's good at what she does. She pointed out and seemed a little bit shaken by how she had to reveal this news to this audience. Vladimir Putin came in the room and steamrolled this sumbitch and left and had his bag of lunch in his hand and said, "Come follow me to Moscow if you want some crumbs, bitch." That's what Vladimir Putin did. And for people who were calling this out before it happened, the point wasn't to talk about how much you hate the president. It's to point out how we already knew this guy has no idea what he's doing. He's beholden to this guy. Something is wrong. People were surprised at how everyone in the administration walked out of that meeting and looked like they were damn afraid.
What struck me, Jen, in particular was really just the looks on the faces of a lot of the American delegation here. Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, Steve Witkoff, who came into the room, then left quickly, then came back in. Leavitt appeared to be a bit stressed out, anxious. Their eyes were wide, almost ashen at times. Those were some of the sort of images that will stick with me as we leave here. This was not the way the president likes to do things. He likes to be the producer of this presidency. He got that in the first half of the day, but when he was behind closed doors with Vladimir Putin, it looks like he didn't come away with anything that he claimed he wanted. He said he'd go home unhappy if there was no ceasefire. They didn't declare one here today.
The faces were ashen, even looked afraid after they left that meeting and had to hear whatever it was this Russian delegation told them, threatened to them, showed them. I wonder what it was. Let's flip back to Fox News, because it was more than just Jackie Heinrich that was talking about the devastating nature of this meeting as ways they came out, and they were supposed to have a press conference afterwards, which they didn't have. They just had some comments, which, as we also heard her say, Vladimir Putin came out and controlled the situation on U.S. soil.
This joint news conference was anything but. It was not a news conference. There were no questions taken by either leader.
Brett, is it safe to say, since he didn't come out and said this is a ceasefire, a cessation of violence, that that is something we didn't get all the way there?
I mean, I think they would have led with it. It would have been the thing that they would have led with, that we agree to a ceasefire. We didn't hear it. And I think that could be disappointing.
Jackie, I was surprised no questions. I was surprised no details on what progress was made.
I think you and me both, Brian, and everyone else in this room was also surprised. There were a few things that were very unusual. You had Putin come out and address the press first. I mean, we are on U.S. soil here. Usually it is the leader of the country, the host country of a summit, that speaks first and addresses the room in their language. But Putin started right off in Russian, and we all had to get our headsets on and listen to him rattle off this diatribe. There was something that he said that was a little bit alarming, I thought, that seems like some of the things that he has done in the past, setting up false flags and that kind of thing, saying that we hope that Ukraine doesn't do anything to sabotage the progress that we made today, knowing full well that Ukraine has agreed to a ceasefire unconditionally for the last several months, and it has been Russia that has not agreed to a ceasefire. There were some things that Putin said that are always cause for concern. When he references things like root causes,
I know.
It's always a reference back to his ultimate goal of taking all of Ukraine. Certainly President Trump, who is the host and who is the president, would not want to, I think, enable something that would make him look weak. But we are eagerly awaiting to hear the background on that.
See how nervous they have to talk about how weak this looked and how weak it was. Honestly, I'm a little less on the symbols and everything of weakness and strength and all that stuff because he had these fighter jets flying over. Who gives a damn? But we'll get to that also as well. But there was pauses and hesitations, and I can't understand it and what happened, and I can't. It seemed he'd want to control the narrative, and he doesn't want to come off weak. There's more though. This MSNBC panel talked about the way that someone may come from meetings like this and the things that they may want to say and spin it a certain way. This is from both sides of the aisle because you make sure that things look a certain way. They couldn't even do that because it was just that bad.
A lot of the press corps that was there, they reported in the minutes and hours after the presser that they saw members of the administration like Carolyn Levitt look ashen,
yes,
almost frightened after what they had seen behind closed doors. What did that indicate to you?
Well, first, we should all be glad that we did not go to Alaska because I was in Helsinki with you and I was in Geneva when President Biden met. They traveled a long ways for nothing in return, those journalists, right? But that suggests to me that this was a bigger disaster than they're leading on. To your point, they're trying to spin it, although they're not even trying to spin it. That's a really interesting thing. When I worked at the White House and we would have meetings like this, I was the SAO, the senior administration official that would call up journalists, that would call the New York Times to say, this is what was discussed, to push it this way. They're not even attempting to do that because they know they don't have anything to work with.
I feel like a lot of times in this country, of course, we downplay the severity of things that go wrong because all we do is cheerlead no matter what it is that happens. There's been plenty of disasters in this country, and you try to spin it a certain way to make it look better than really what it was. This is a disaster. This guy didn't know what he was doing, didn't know what he was walking into, didn't know that Alaska is part of the United States of America when he walked in. But as again, they pointed out, these folks walked out looking afraid. Caroline Levitt, who has fire, throws flame balls at everybody at these press conferences. I mean, unless some Nazi asks a question like Benny Johnson did last week. She's got fireballs and flamethrowers for everybody else. But they walked out of this meeting afraid and eyes wide open. What did Vladimir Putin and his people show and tell them? This was a little moment that happened right before he had this meeting. When someone pointed out, which what Trump apparently said he knew about, was this breakdown in our security at the DOJ and the ability for the Russians folks, their spies or whoever it is in their intel departments, to find things out. This was his response to someone asking him if he knew about that. And I think this might lead a little bit more as to why they walked out of that meeting ashen.
There's new reporting that the Russians have hacked into some computer systems that manage U.S. federal court documents. I wonder if you've seen this reporting and if you plan to bring it up with Putin when you see him later in the week.
I guess I could. Are you surprised? Are you surprised? They hack in. That's what they do. They're good at it. We're good at it. We're actually better at it. But no, I have heard about it. I have heard about it.
He had heard about it, but as he was hearing the question and thinking, oh, damn. What he had to answer was, who cares? Who cares? They hacked into U.S. federal court documents and have all kinds of information, potentially dirt on people. And who cares? Why would I bring it up to him? He's probably going to bring it up to me, whatever it is that he found out, which maybe that's what happened in the meeting. All we can do is speculate. Maybe he brought up things that he already knows. Maybe he brought up things that we don't know that's going on in this cover-up of Epstein files. Who knows? Yo, I'm just guessing. All I can do is guess because this guy has a lot of secrets. And as we know, they're working overtime to get people to extract and black out and eliminate his name from all of the filthy shit this guy has been involved in his life. Maybe specifically the child sex trafficking ring that he was involved in his life. So since it's been a few days of everybody talking about this guy and, dragging his name in the mud, you won't be surprised to hear that the president of the United States is upset about all of those things being said about his failures because, he's a failure. This is what he had to say over on his stupid ass app. The fake news has been saying for 3 days that I suffered a, quote, major defeat by allowing President Vladimir Putin of Russia to have a major summit in the United States. Actually, he would have loved doing the meeting anywhere else, but the U.S. and the fake news knows this. It was a major point of contention. If we had the summit elsewhere, the Democrat run and controlled media would have said what a terrible thing that was. These people are sick. They even want crime in DC. Here's the deflection. You guys see the left turn that was made? These people are sick. They even want crime in DC and other blue cities throughout our country. But don't worry, I won't let that happen. Just like our now secure southern border, 0 illegals in last 3 months. Our cities will be secure and safe, and DC will lead the way. How did we get on your latest deflection from the topic at hand? The topic that you brought up in this Truth Social post. Nobody asked you to start talking about how people have been dragging your ass around for the past 3 days about your failed summit, about that one where you bowed down, where you knelt over and gave him handshakes and cheesed it up, invited him into your armored car and rolled down that red carpet for his ass. All that stuff that you did that stuff.